On September 11, 2001, hijacked Flight 175 hit the South Tower of the World Trade Center. At the time, the North and South Towers were the tallest buildings in New York City. Floors 77 through 85 of the South Tower were struck minutes after the North Tower was hit. This led both buildings to eventually collapse, leading to the deaths and trauma of many Americans.
Once 9/11 happened, that was, an incredible shock to all of us. I remember that day. It's 22 years ago now. I remember everything about that day like it happened last week. I remember the sounds, the sights. I remember watching the news that morning. Pretty much everybody just kind of froze that day. Being in Boston, it was really kind of spooky that there was no airplanes flying overhead. There was no traffic outside. Everybody just went home.
Welles Crowther, a man, a hero, a legacy. Someone who put himself at risk, not thinking about his deathbed. This heroic man died saving others, doing what he loved, helping those around him.
Yeah, so Welles, he was one of my roommates in college. I met him junior year. He was looking for a place to live. He was a unique individual. He was a ton of fun. He wanted to live every weekend like it was going to be the best ever. A lot of times it was like he was concerned about legacy, like what are we going to do that people are going to remember? What are we, what are you going to do that people are going to remember? And I remember that probably the most about him was, what are you going to do to make somebody else's life better? What are you going to do to help somebody? And he was constantly doing those things. Welles played lacrosse at BC, so he was athletic, he was into sports. At heart, he was just a truly caring individual, and he was a great friend and a loyal friend. I got a phone call early that morning that from Johnny saying that, hey, a plane crashed into one of the World Trade Center buildings. And he's like, I just talked to Welles, the plane didn't hit his building, he's fine. And so I sat there watching the news and I watched the second plane crash into Welles' building. His company had actually set up a website where the employees could check in and say like, oh, this is so-and-so, I'm okay. And so we sat there for hours refreshing the website, trying to see if Welles was checking in. And he wasn't all day. We got to later that night, and he still hadn't checked in, and that's kind of when reality set in that probably something the worst had probably happened. So the towers obviously collapsed on September 11th, and they found Welles' body in March. So a full 6 months later is when they found his body, and they found his body in what had been the lobby of the one tower of the World Trade Center.
Welles Crowther was located on the 104th floor, working as an equities trader. When the South Tower was hit, Welles' mission was to help those around him. On the 78th floor, there was only a limited number of elevators located. Due to the plane crashing into this area, elevators were unable to be used. People on and above the 78th floor were trapped, unable to get down. Welles, who came down from the 104th floor, was able to navigate the only escape path through the hazy smoke in his red bandana. Staircase A was the tunnel to safety for these 18 people. Welles gathered those around him, leading them to the only way out down to the lobby. Crowther led these people to safety, being the only reason they survived that day. Judy Ween was one of the 18 who survived due to Welles' heroic acts. She recalls, I see this incredible hero running back and forth and saving the day. People can live 100 years and not have the compassion, the wherewithal to do what he did.
I guess the New York Times started publishing articles about survivors that day and their stories, and a couple of the stories kept referencing a man in a red bandana. And Welles' mom, Allison, she put it together that it had to be Welles that they were talking about. So she got in touch with one of the women whose her story was in the New York Times, and she sent this woman a picture of Welles and was like, sorry. She said, was this the man that saved you? And she was like, oh my God, yeah, this is the guy. He had actually carried her down probably like 18, 20 flights of stairs. He carried her down and handed her off to uniformed firefighters who were coming up looking for people. And Welles went back up, and he made several trips back up into the lobby where he had found a way out. He had a red bandana over his face, and that's how he was able to be identified. And he made several trips. At this point in time, I think they credit for him saving up to 17 people. He was carrying people down flights of stairs. Several times he could have walked out of the building before it collapsed, and he just kept going back up, and because there were still people that were alive in the sky lobby, which is where he had found the stairwell that was working, and he just kept going back up, and apparently at the end when the building actually collapsed, he was down in the lobby with firefighters trying to get the jaws of life. The jaws of life, the giant, like, powerful scissors they used to cut like steel, because there was somebody trapped under a beam that was still alive, and he knew that if he could get the jaws of life up there, he thought he could save this person and get him cut out of out from under the beam and get this person down and save him, and then that's when the building collapsed, when he was down with the firefighters trying to get the jaws of life to go up.
Welles was a major impact to those around him and those who had never known him a day in their life. He stepped into action to save others before himself, not knowing he wouldn't make it out to see his family, friends, and loved ones again. He chose others over himself that day, which is an act most people would have never done. Those 18 people most likely would have never survived without Welles. Welles impacted many others due to his heroic acts. People around the country read Tom Rinaldi's book, The Red Bandana. This book dives into how Welles spent the last hour of his life and the tremendous sacrifices he made. Kids would wear basketball jerseys with Welles' number 19 to honor his name and to bring awareness to his story. Whether it be football or lacrosse, schools have shown significant support in keeping Welles' story alive. His story inspires individuals and shows them that they can make a difference just like him. Children are given a hero to look up to, different from the common sports player or singer, someone who made a huge difference in people's lives in times of trouble.
So, he lost his life, but I like to look at it as he went out doing something that he truly wanted to be doing, which was helping people and saving people. And, it's a pretty powerful story and a pretty powerful impact that he was able to make on 17 people's lives. And that's just how he impacted people that day. I know he's impacted thousands of people since that day who see his story and are inspired by it. And I think that his story is so powerful, it's worth repeating, and just to keep his legacy carrying on.